Joining me here on the TRS podcast is Kyle from the band Hellyeah. Kyle, welcome back to the show, man. It's always good to have you.
Thanks, man. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, man. It's been a while, man. And I was talking with your rep here, and it's weird that it's almost been 4 years since you've been on the broadcast. And obviously a lot has happened, and we can talk about with Vinny and the tour and the new album Welcome Home and everything as well. But
yeah.
It's always weird because when these things come together, as far as touring, like the album is done in a short time, and then there's this long waiting period before you have the pre-order and then the release date
right
in September. So you have all this time and all this build up and stuff. And I imagine this time around is obviously a lot more difficult for a lot of obviously reasons than previous albums with the wait and the pre-order and getting this tour together and everything. As obviously Tom had surgery and stuff. I guess he's doing really good. So hopefully a full recovery there for him. But talk to me about the waiting process as a band. You're like, okay, we have these songs. A very emotional time for the band, and like I said, we'll talk about Vinny in a moment. But what was the waiting process like this time around compared to other albums you guys have done together?
Well, this time, for several reasons, it took the longest. It's the longest process that I've ever been involved in. Like, we started writing in the studio. I think it was November of 2017. Our last show was August of 2017, and then we took a month and then went back in the studio. So we kind of started back business as usual, got in there and took a break for the holidays. And we're supposed to go back in January, and then there were some studio conflicts, and ended up not getting back in until May or April or May or something like that. That was already, much longer process than we thought. And then we got in there for another month or something, 4 or 5 weeks. And then with Vinny passing in the middle of June, and that just, it was for a huge loop. So it's from start to actual, and then the label delayed the release a couple times for label reasons, whatever that was. So from the time we started to the time it was released, that's almost a 2-year time span, which is just insane to think about. Yeah. When actual recording time was probably 3 or 4 months if you just cram it all together. So it's crazy how much time was in between. Even before Vinny passed, we were like sitting around. We weren't touring, obviously. We weren't in the studios. We just had a lot of dead time. We're just, it's all doing our own things, just kind of passing the time until we get back in. And then with everything else that happened after that, and we're sitting on a record that we were finished with and completed, and then just so much time went by. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Try not to think about it, because it'll drive you insane. And the record's out there, just waiting for it to get released. No one's heard anything yet, but we've been listening to it for a while now. So it's just a crazy roller coaster of emotions. Up and down, waiting and trying not to think about it, but then that's all you can think about sometimes. So it's just weird.
Yeah, I imagine that is weird, man. Obviously, the circumstances obviously dictate a little bit there with Vinny's untimely passing. Right. But you get these songs, you have them done, and it's Vinny's final work, and you're sitting on it, and you're like, man, I really want to have these songs be heard by the masses, and then you got to wait, that time frame.
You do wait, yeah.
During that waiting process, you're having time to kind of, take a step back from recording these songs and listen to Vinny's final work and everything. Did you guys get together as a band as far as, the first run, obviously the album came out, back into September here. On these first run of songs off this album, was there obviously plenty of time to kind of sit and think and stew, but as you alluded to, but as far as set list is concerned, obviously, you're going out there on tour. Fans want to hear the old stuff too. Was there songs off this album where you're like, man, I don't know if we want to play this live because of X reason? Was that ever a conversation?
Not really. I mean, one good thing about this is that the record didn't come out until end of September, but we started releasing songs. I mean, it seems like it was April or May or something like that when 333 was the first one. So we were releasing songs at least once a month. So by the time the record came out, we'd already put, 4 songs were already out there. So at least, if you're following the band or you're watching the videos or you have, if there's actually a rock station in your town that's playing it, of course there's Sirius XM, which is a huge supporter of us. So thankfully by the time we got that first tour, we already had, I think at that point there was 3 songs out there. So it wasn't too difficult because you definitely don't want to play songs that no one's heard before because some people want to hear it, but then sometimes it just doesn't go over, because you're not familiar with it, you just don't know anything about it. So we definitely played every song that was released on the last tour that we did. And it was kind of a gamble, you don't know how it's going to go over, but the response was amazingly well, and people were actually singing the songs back, and you think they've been out for, for 5 or 6 years, the way the response was. So it was a good thing that we kind of took a gamble and we started playing some, and they went over amazingly well. So it was an easy one this time, I guess.
Well, I'm sure that always is a relief on stage, because I think sometimes when you're in a band, you're doing something, you're like, okay, we're gonna play track 6 off this new album, and maybe half the crowd's heard it, and then it all of a sudden you're like, oh man, it played great, they're singing along to it, it's caught on. And I think 333 was the perfect introduction, I think, for the new record, because that song literally is just a front kick to the chest, like, yep, this is Hellyeah,
totally
we still got it, and bang, here it is. Was that did you guys talk about that was that always going to be the first single, or was there a debate on what direction to go with the first single?
There really wasn't a debate, because the story behind that is research, other than Sky and Water, which is a song we wrote after Vinny passed, and there's no drums on it, it's just acoustic stuff. Other than that, we thought the record was finished, and Vinny was walking by with something, and Kevin, our Churko producer, he was working on a different song, like he was doing his producer things, working on edits, and he was kind of looping one part over and over again just to fix. So he heard something he wanted to fix, and then Vinny kind of walked by and heard this loop, and it just gave him this idea for a new song. So it made him stop in the middle of that. It's like, just try this. So him and Kevin sat down and basically wrote that. Like 333 333 is officially Vinny's last piece of work, because the other songs were done, and they put that song together, and then we recorded the other parts. But that was like his last thing that he thought of. We thought the record was finished. That was the song. It wasn't even titled anything, but once we got back into the studio, Chad decided that's the first one he wanted to work on, because just because it was Vinny's last, kind of last deal. And so it just kind of made sense that that's going to be the opening track on the record. That's going to be the first song, the video that we release. And it's kind of a natural thing. There's no arguments or anything like that. Like, this is what it's going to be. 333 is perfect. It's all over the record. It's the first song. It's Vinny. That's it. So to answer your question, no, there wasn't any discussion or decision making. Like, that was an obvious choice for everybody. Label, us, producer, everybody was on the same page on that one.
Very cool, man. Thanks for sharing that story, man. I didn't realize that was one of his. Yeah. Obviously, I knew the album, drum tracks and everything were his final work, but I didn't realize that was his final, the final touch there, and it was really cool. Right. You guys, obviously had that song. I mean, that song completely rocks, man. But when you're doing on this tour and you're celebrating Vinny's life, man, I had the privilege of running in the video only once in my time as a concert photographer in Nashville, and he actually wasn't even at one of your guys' shows. It was actually a night before. You guys had shown up at the Exit in Nashville, Tennessee, to watch Filter play, and I was photographing up front, and I looked and I was like, is that Vinny Paul hanging out at the bar having a drink? And and I
totally remember that. Yep.
Yeah, but I remember kicking myself not grabbing a picture, and I'm not a big selfie guy anyway, but I remember him.
Right.
The stories are always true. Vinny is just a really, really gracious dude, man, and was like, hey man, he's like, dude, and I was like, I'm gonna be at your show tomorrow at the Cannery photograph, and he was like, oh cool man, thanks. He's like, make sure you get good shots, just a really nice guy, and I finished my drink and kind of let him go on with his evening, and not linger, but just a really nice guy, and you always hear the stories about people talking about Vinny being a nice guy, and they're all true, like and sometimes I don't think they do him. I don't know if they do him justice. Yeah, like it was such a great dude, man. I don't know if you want to take a moment. I'm sure you probably talked a lot of Vinny stories, but do you recall like your first meeting with him, or meeting with him or working with him as a musician?
I do, because actually at the time I thought I was super lucky, because I was it was like I think it's 2005 or 6. I was in a band called Blood Simple, and we actually opened up the first Hellyeah tour, like the first record, first tour out of the gate. So I thought it was pretty amazing that I was there when the time that Vinny got back on stage, after everything with his brother. He was just out of the picture. He wasn't playing in bands. He wasn't doing anything. And then for the fact that we opened the show up and did the whole tour with him. So the fact that I was there, seeing him get back up there for the first time was just huge for me. And then that's where I started to get to know him. We toured many tours with him before I was even in the band. So we got to be friends and hung out a lot on the road. So by the time, when I was actually joined the band in 2014, it was just a natural kind of thing. We all knew each other. We were all friends. And I've been around Vinny for the past, on and off since, I guess, 2005 is when it was. That was my first encounter, an actual physical meeting and getting to hang out with him, that was just a pretty huge moment for me. I saw Pantera back in the day and all this. I never thought I'd be playing in a band with that guy.
Right. Yeah. It's always cool to guys that you look up to musically, and then you meet them and you realize that they're cooler than you originally thought they were. That's always a nice feeling.
That can go either way sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, it really can, man. You're like, oh man, I really look up to Steve. I'm looking forward to meeting him, and then you meet him, and you're like, oh shit, that guy was kind of a dick. Video is the complete opposite of that.
Yep. Totally is. Yep.
Now, you guys are getting, obviously, finished the first leg of this tour here. Obviously, I would pretty successful, man. Obviously, you guys sold out a bunch of shows as well.
Yeah.
The guys from Non-Point were out with you. I fucking love those dudes, man. They're great. Getting ready for this second leg here, and then obviously you guys are going to do, I think, closing out with Shiprocked late January, early February as well, which you guys, we could talk about that in a moment. But
correct.
On this second run of the tour here, with this album, are you going to do a lot more off this album than you did on the first leg?
I think we might even, the record's out now, and fans are into it. And hit the record, hopefully, and have heard the record. We kind of have the freedom to pick a few more songs, and we actually haven't solidified a set list yet, but we might even kind of rotate a few. Instead of playing that same set every night, we might change it up. But there's a good, I'm looking at the listing now. There's a good 1, 2, 3. There's a good 4 songs that I can definitely see happening. And maybe we can add another one in there, or like I said, switch one in and out. But it's hard when the more records you have, it's hard to solidify a set list where you're not playing for 2.5 hours or something. But yeah, we got a pretty good idea of what we're doing this one. We just gotta wait till we all get together and kind of sit face to face and talk it out and see what works.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned mixing up, because I've talked with guys from Clutch have been on several times. I've talked with Neil, about writing set lists and stuff, and they're like, oh, we'll rehearse. I don't know, 20 songs or whatever, and this kind of mix and match as we go on. Do you guys take turns writing set lists? Are you like, hey man, let's throw this in. We rehearsed it. It's on our, list for this tour or whatever. Do you ever pick songs to see if Chad remembers the lyrics or not?
Yeah, we kind of do that. When you're in the studio, you're not playing the whole song. You're playing it one at a time, or sometimes it was, me and Vinny playing at the same time, but unless you're just, writing just in a jam room, you're not really playing all together. So even now I'm looking at some of these songs, and we've never played these songs before until we get ready for a tour. So it's pretty much, if everybody remembering the parts and Chad remembering, remember the lyrics and stuff. So we all kind of throw in our ideas, and usually we'll try the song and either it works or it doesn't, So we're going to do probably the same thing on this one. We have a good 20-song set list that we're going to rehearse, and you end up playing, maybe 12, 14, 15 songs a night. So hopefully if we can get 20 songs down, we'll have the freedom to kind of mix it up and switch a few out here and there, and just whatever mood we're into.
Yeah, right on. Very cool. But I know people were looking forward to these upcoming shows, and obviously Shiprocked is a huge thing. Is your liver prepared for Shiprock? One, and and do you have a favorite Shiprock story? I know you guys have been on a couple cruises before. Is there a story that you could share, even with Vinny being on the boat, if you have one of those?
Yeah, it's just kind of a cool thing, because it's like everybody is on the boat. Every artist and every fan is on the boat. So it's, sometimes when you're playing shows and a few people come backstage and they just think it's the coolest thing, and you're all just kind of hanging out together, but that's always short-lived, because you always have to leave in an hour or two after the show. And with Shiprock just being just like a group kind of family event, everybody's there. So I think this is pretty cool. Everyone is super respectful too, because no one's bombarding you, and they're just hanging out just like we are. So, I like doing the cruises. You play twice. I guess the cruises are usually like 4 or 5 days, and usually each band will play once on the way out, once on the way back or something. So it's just it's a good time to hang, for everybody. Vinny usually would end up in the casino like he always does, and, just gambling with anybody who wants to hang out with him. So
right.
it's just fun seeing other people. I kind of like sitting back, and I'm more of a people watcher, so I like watching people's reaction when they would hang out with him, and they're just sitting like right next to him at the blackjack table, just flipping out, and he's just being as cool as he can be and helping them out, and just I just like watching just the kind of the happiness that everyone has when they're around him.
Very cool, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing that story. Is there anyone on the boat that you're looking forward to seeing play live that you haven't seen play live?
There's a couple bands that thankfully I'm not even familiar with. So I'm hoping to be surprised on some new acts, because I don't listen to a lot of new music, and I just don't know about a lot of newer bands. So there's definitely a few that I wasn't familiar with. I know Blackstone Cherries, we played with them a few times. They're always a kick-ass band. And then Hailstorm we've done some shows with them before, and they're super cool and awesome. And I'm trying to think of who else is on that thing.
I just pulled up a brief list here. We got Beartooth, Ice Nine Kills.
Beartooth, yeah, Alter Bridge, I think.
Alter Bridge, Blackstone Cherry, I think you mentioned, Of Mice and Men. Ice Nine Kills, yep. I'm a fan of those guys. I saw those guys a couple of years ago at the racetrack here for Warped Tour, like 3 years ago, right? And 95 degrees out, Warped Tour inside the railroad track here, and in Nashville, it's 100 degrees out or whatever, and these guys come out dressed in they're like thrash metal, like horror, and they're dressed as like Freddy Krueger and stuff. And this guy's like crowd walking,
right?
Out into the middle of the crowd and stuff. Like, these guys are badass. And then they were on tour with Beartooth this year. I got a chance to see them again. I was like, oh, they were, that's one of the bands that I think kind of underrated. I think because I think some people are like, they're wearing Freddy Krueger mask, or they're guys dressed as the kid from It or whatever. But man, as a thrash band, they are pretty damn entertaining, man.
That's awesome, because I've heard Ice Nine and Beartooth, but I've never seen either one live. So like I said, it'd be cool to see some of these bands that I don't normally get the opportunity to check out live. So it's always fun to see that.
Yeah, I think those two bands are probably going to shock a lot of people, because I don't know if you get some of the older crowd are not familiar, as you had mentioned, with some of the newer bands.
Yep.
I think those two bands, Ice Nine Kills and Beartooth, I think are going to win a lot of people over. And of course, you mentioned Hailstorm. Yeah. I mean. That band's fantastic. And I'm fortunate enough, I live here in Nashville, so I've been fortunate enough to run into Lizzie backstage at shows and stuff. I'm like, hey, it's Lizzie Hale again. Awesome. It's great to see you again, But, well, Carl, man, I don't know, is there anything you want to say before I let you run here? I don't want to take up too much of your afternoon here, but.
Well, I mean, we're just looking forward to getting back out. We finally got the strength and courage to get back out there. So it's just super. It's just so awesome to see how thankful and open arms the fans are to welcome us back, and just kind of getting the family back together. So we definitely can't wait to get back out there and hit all these places we haven't hit, and it's been like 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah, man. Well, hopefully at some point in 2020, I don't know what the future plans are for touring this coming up summer, but hopefully you guys can come back through Nashville. We can reconnect again at that point. But dude, I want to thank you guys. You guys are always super cool. I think you've been on the show twice. Tom has been on the show, so you guys have always been really super cool about coming on the show and awesome. Donating some time, and it's much appreciated, man. It really is.
Of course, man. We appreciate it.
All right, cool. Well, let's close out with the song we talked about, and that is 333. It is Hellyeah here on Revelator.
I like it. Right on.
Hey, Kyle, thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate the time.
You got it, man. Hopefully we'll see you in Nashville soon.
Yeah, right on, brother. All right, man. Take care, man.
All right, man.